Hello, hello, as Baba Booey once said. Welcome to another episode of DOD45. I'm your host, Tai of ArtByTai, and today I have a very enjoyable discussion with my guest, a lyrical phenom and crafty Cadence Emcee out of Columbus, Ohio, Illogic.
Yeah, I've never been the type to close mouth, but I'm closed off, just pickpocketing time for ticks as it fades. Ignoring the signs, even the ones that say don't walk, cause hip rocket designed for clips and grenades. A devout skeptic questions find me comfort.
During our discussion, I learned some things I probably should have known, but never actually did, like the differences between an EP and an LP, and the differences between an MC and a rapper. We get into topics such as him being an athlete and track star and training for the Olympics, his passion for podcasting, which he does with his longtime pal Blueprint, raising young black men in America, his recent weight loss, technology, excitement in the current state of the NBA, go Jazz, and how cell phones now give everyone the tools to make art in some form or fashion. Illogic is an incredibly busy man with an inspiring work ethic. He's a producer, a writer, MC, podcast co-host, photographer, and a family man who steps into projects and life with the utmost integrity. With a schedule as hefty as his, I'm extremely grateful to him for setting aside some time to have a conversation with me. Before I open up the mics to our discussion, I'd like to quickly share with you some audio providing just a glimpse of his talents as an MC and demonstrating what led to my longtime fanship.
If a picture's worth 1,000 words, I'll paint 1,000 pictures to symbolize the decibel level spread of 1,000 whispers. Yo, this is diabolical fun with psychological implications. You better run a limp while I raise the temperature till I melt the sun. Maturity is a gift, of course.
Inspiring, right? Well, without further ado, the man himself, Illogic. Hello, Illogic, and thank you for joining me on DOD45.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This seems really interesting, like, and you know, there's nothing like it, so I wanted to be a part of it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was something I wanted to start at the beginning of the pandemic. I'd had very little inspiration during the bulk of the pandemic. I know we're not necessarily out of it, but there is light at this end of this tunnel, which kind of brings me to asking you real quick before we start. Were you able to find some sort of inspiration through this pandemic, or did you find it harder to feel creative?
I found I had more time. You know, like the pandemic gave me my time back. So during that time, I learned new things. I did a lot. You know, I took advantage of having that time back. You know, because you know, having to go into work as opposed to waking up and just going in my basement to go to work. You know, I could listen to samples while I'm working. I could, you know, like write rhymes while I'm working. Like,
yeah.
So it gave me a lot of time to watch tutorials and, you know, all kind of things. So I took full advantage of having that time back.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I guess working from home, you can do the things that you don't do in the office, like you said.
Exactly.
The samples. That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a way to take advantage of it. Are you good at having a surplus of time? Is that something that you benefit from?
I've gotten much better at it after having a wife and kids for 20 years. Like, you start to learn how to compartmentalize your time. You know, you start to learn how to get your little, you know, couple hours away from everyone and scheduling things and, you know, all of that. So yeah, it's been a journey, but I'm much better now. You know, I understand the value of time.
Hopefully that's what people are going to get out of this, is how we were given so much time, and then we realized how valuable that time is, because for those of us that weren't able to go into work, because I still have a lot of friends that were working every day and nothing really changed for them.
Yeah, me too.
So, all right, here we go. I'm going to turn the old school timer to the 45. Here we go. Here's the 45-minute timer is set and it's running. The first question that I want to ask you, like I said, the first album I think I heard of yours was the Celestial Clockwork album. And one of the first songs that I was really turned on to was the 1000 Whispers song. and which you use the sample from one of my favorite movies of all time, Magnolia, but also has the great use of the Who's "Won't Get Fooled Again" song. So I'd like to start with this Sophie's Choice, The Who or Why?
Why?
Okay.
Just because I know him. So I have that personal connection. The Who I'm just a fan of, and I don't know them. But why? Yeah, like I know him personally, and I watched the development of him. We both started working in this industry kind of around the same time. So having that personal connection and being able to watch the growth and watch the elevation, to what he has become, touring the world and, really living the dream, all the stuff that we talked about when we were, in Dose One's apartment when I was in college, making music and smoking a lot of weed during that time. But, all the things that we talked about and we look forward to in music, like he's really gotten to experience a lot of that. And it's really exciting to see and have a personal connection with that.
I don't know much about Ohio or the Cincinnati and Columbus. Are you guys like totally separate entities, like San Francisco and Los Angeles are two totally different worlds?
Not kinda. I mean, Columbus is a bigger city. It's the capital of Ohio, so it's a lot bigger. And Cincinnati is like I believe they call it the sister city. So it's not as big, but it's pretty big. And that's where I went to college, in Cincinnati, from Columbus. So, that's when I met Y and I met Dose One and a lot of the other people that I associate with now. That's when I met those people. So it can be a different world, but it's only an hour and a half away, so it's pretty close.
But it's not as tight as the St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Oh, no,
tightness.
No, not nowhere near.
Okay. Where did you grow up?
Columbus.
Oh, in Columbus. Okay.
Yeah.
De La Soul or Soul Position?
De La Soul. De La Soul is my most favorite group of all time. Like every De La Soul album is a classic to me. And even the ones that aren't still are, just because just because I love them.
So Blueprint will let that one slide?
Oh yeah, he'll let that one slide. He knows. He knows. Pasta Noose is my favorite rapper of all time.
What was it about De La Soul and Pasta Noose that you feel like you connected to?
They were just different. Like they were coming in the gate, they were different. And that difference was appreciated and celebrated. And as a kid, I was always the nerd. I was always on the outside looking in, even, as far as friend groups. Now, what made me popular was I played sports as well. So, I ran track. I was, I played football. I was on the basketball team in middle school, and once I got to high school, that's when the hip hop started to influence. And I was a track star. Like I was really pretty fast. I actually had a hamstring injury training for the Olympics back in 2007, 2008. I was actually preparing to go to the Olympic trials, and I tore my hamstring in my senior track meet in high school, lost my scholarship, lost a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a long one to recover from.
Yeah. So, and I tore it like in half. Like it wasn't a strain. I tore my hamstring and tore a muscle. So it was extremely painful. But, so having that helped with, getting people to talk to me and socialize with me. But as a child in elementary school, I was different. I was always kind of to myself. I got picked on a lot. So I was very introverted, starting out. And, once I discovered hip hop, the first hip hop I really remember is MC Lyte, the Cha 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 video. That was like, that was the first hip hop tape I ever bought. But growing up and seeing De La Soul and seeing cats that dress different, that didn't talk about the same things, that, approached their topics in different ways, story mode, poetically, like using words that weren't in the hip hop vernacular at the time, like just, and the way they shot their videos, the way, everything was different about them. And it's always remained that way, even once, you know, things started to shift. Even like Stakes is High is probably, I would say Stakes is High is one of the most perfect albums in hip hop history. Like from front to back, you can play that record and every song is still relatable to this day. The beats still bang. You know, like it's a great fucking hour you can spend listening to music. And you know, and Pasta Noose leads the way. And you know, Trugoy is not to be messed with either. Like as a group, they are amazing. And it's great to see them, you know, stay together so long and hopefully finally, you know, get a hold on their catalog. So I've been following that.
Yeah, they've been fighting to get that right for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a shame. I mean, I don't know much about the business and how things like that work, but I did have a chance to interview them like, oh God, I don't even know, 15 years ago on a TV show that I used to do. And I think it was like they were having issues even back then trying to deal with it. So.
Well, can I just ask, is that why the older albums aren't on Spotify and stuff? They don't have rights to this? Because I was just looking up the other day going, I want to listen to some of these old albums. I don't know where to get them now.
We break out. You keep making fun of me in my tapes. Are you on the tape game right now?
Oh yeah, I have 2 shoot boxes full of tapes. Well, I sample from tapes. I have a whole collection of tapes that I buy from thrift stores and things like that. So yeah, definitely on the tape game. Not a super collector, but you know.
Well, yeah. So is it because I don't care much for the tape sound? I have all my tapes. I mean, that was what I bought. I always bought tapes, but I'm not a fan of the sound of tape at all. I like the sound of vinyl, but I don't find the sound of tape. It's very quiet and muddled. I don't know.
But even newer tapes still have that sound, but that's why I use them for sampling. I don't like listening to tapes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Not at all, you know, but using them for sampling, that adds an ambiance and different sounds you can use in different textures. Using those for that kind of use. But as far as listening, I'd much rather listen to, you know, vinyl or digital versions of, you know, things these days.
Through a life hack that I've learned from my wife recently, I've come to realize acting like I know something when I don't is actually super detrimental to my abilities to garner more knowledge. So I've diligently been kind of working on being honest and like asking if I don't know something, which will lead me to this question that something that's been on my mind. What is the difference between, if you know, an LP and an EP?
The length, the time, the length of time.
So when someone says they're releasing an album, like I'm releasing my LP, will they then release? So the EP is the extra play, right? A longer version of it?
It actually stands for extended play.
Oh.
So basically when the industry started and they started releasing music that way, there were singles, there were EPs, which were extended plays, and then there were LPs, which stands for long play. So even back then, though, like LPs were maximum usually like 30 minutes because of the amount of time that you could fit on 2 sides of vinyl.
Obviously, yeah.
Because it cost so much money to press vinyl, and then pressing double vinyl was double the expense. So because records, most of them, I believe LPs hold at 33 RPMs, hold about 38 minutes. So that's why, you know, some of the classic albums like Off the Wall and Thriller, a lot of Michael Jackson's early records are only like 9 songs or like 8 songs, you know, like, so they're whole albums, but it's because of the length of time usually for the vinyl. And then EPs are, you know, shorter versions of those. Usually they would be two songs and up were for EPs.
So would the EP be something that they would release the same songs that were on the LP, or would they just be like a single? Like
sometimes, and that's where we got maxi singles, because people didn't release EPs for a long time, and they started calling them maxi singles. Usually, the maxi single would have the original song, maybe a remix, maybe, you know, or a few remixes, maybe an instrumental, and maybe like one more song. So those were maxi singles that were kind of reiterations of the same song multiple times. And then EPs were, you know, like maybe they'd release an EP for promotional use. So they would release like maybe 2 or 3 songs from the album and a song that wasn't on the album. So they did a lot of those things earlier. And now an EP is its own entity. Usually an EP is something that you'll never hear on an LP these days. Because actually I'm about to release a new EP, and it's like 8 songs that stand alone. It has nothing to do with any other albums or anything. So they've become more of their own entities, but they didn't used to be that way.
2 things are on my mind. Thank you, Adrian. That's my wife, for the hot life hack, because these are things that, like, I love hearing that stuff. It's very interesting to me that if I would have just pretended like I knew what it was, I'll never actually get to hear someone break it down for me. Obviously, I can Google it, but Googling information is good for you on certain things. But sometimes I just prefer to hear it straight from somebody. So thank you for sharing that for me, because that's something I would have been embarrassed to admit that I don't really know. You know, being someone that has been listening to music and collecting music all my life, that's just one of those things that I just kind of let go over my head. So thank you for that. What do you feel, what is the proper not proper, but what would be the nomenclature? MC, rapper, or neither, or does it even matter?
It doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. You know, I think there's definitions have been created by the culture, but nobody really holds anyone to certain standards as much anymore. I would consider a rapper someone who is more concerned with the performance aspect of, you know, being in the industry, as far as, you know, the just making the music. I would say an MC cares more about the technical aspects of rapping, the technical aspects of style, and all of the elements of hip hop being engulfed in, you know, how they approach their music. So, you know, some people will get offended if you call them a rapper, you know, because of, and not necessarily offended like they won't talk to you anymore, but sure, you know, they may correct you. Yeah. And say, no, I'm an MC, you know, I happen to rap, but I'm an MC, you know, and that's just, you know, a cat like me, like I consider myself an MC, and being a person who has in some way, form, or fashion been involved in almost every element of hip hop at some point in his career. I understand the culture as a whole. And that's one of the reasons I consider myself an MC. And, you know, that is a, something that, you know, people usually take into account as they're describing themselves, or, you know, accepting what people call them.
Yeah, I think now I can get that, because sometimes people will call me an illustrator, and I don't consider myself an illustrator at all. I just like to draw. So yeah, but I wouldn't be offended by it. But yeah, it's definitely something. I always based what I thought of an MC off of the Tribe Called Quest's that break right there in the middle when she says, some people don't know what this term means. What album is that?
That's from Midnight Marauders, I believe. Yeah.
That's what anytime I hear MC, I start thinking, now is this person a master of ceremony?
Right.
Yeah, I guess I don't put too much focus on it, but it is something that's on my mind when mostly in this series I've been interviewing rappers, MCs that I've been a fan of my whole life, and I've always kind of wondered, like, I don't really know, like, what do I call them? So I just call them musicians. But then I don't even know, does that fly? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I don't think it matters as much overall, but, you know, some musicians may get offended that you call a rapper a musician because they don't play any instruments, if they don't play any instruments, you know. So a musician, you know, by definition makes music. So a rapper does make music, kind of. You know, so absolutely. Yeah, so it's a wild thing, but, you know, to us it doesn't matter that much. I don't think, at least to me, it doesn't.
Yeah, seems like you're into self-reflection, and it's just based off of what I listen to and your lyrics and your music, and it is inspiring. Where do you feel that had come from? If you feel the same way, I don't know. It seems very self-reflective to me. So,
oh yeah. I mean, I always, and I tell people this all the time. Like when I write for me first, all the time. So anything for the most part that I write down has to do with what I'm going through, or, you know, what people close to me are going through, and utilizing that and kind of using that as a mirror to see, you know, where I stack up, where I'm lacking, what I need to improve, you know, so on and so forth. And I think that's the best art. That's the most authentic that I can be. And without, you know, being someone who looks at their art as just an avenue for money, or just an avenue for, you know, something that is surface, I look at my art as something that is deeply a part of me, and, you know, and utilizing it. Most of my music for me is kind of therapeutic in a way. A lot of times I don't completely understand what I'm feeling until I write it down. You know, I don't completely always understand what I'm feeling until I record it. There's been songs that I've made and I didn't completely understand them until months after listening to them multiple times, you know. And so it allows me to, you know, dive into my innermost thoughts and my innermost feelings. And that's the best way. That's how I communicate, you know, a lot of times, especially with those that I don't talk to on a regular basis. And I've found that it's very helpful for the people that listen to me to understand that they're not alone, and that, you know, those that don't have a platform and those that don't have a voice like I have, and the ability to write things down or have an outlet to release that kind of frustration and energy, find it, you know, find it great to find out that they aren't alone. And that, you know, the fact that this person went through losing their mother or losing their grandmother or losing a job or doing this or doing that, like, and they're still functioning, you know, they're still able to find some kind of success and some kind of purpose in this life, even though they went through the same thing that I'm going through and I'm feeling hopeless right now. You know, the fact that they're still moving and shaking, then it's possible for me. You know, this is not the end all be all. So, and being self-reflective also allows me to keep that, you know, kind of motivation in my daily life. Cause I use my music as, you know, kind of chronicling times in my life and looking back on the history of, because I've made a lot of music. So I have a nice little, you know, timeline of, oh, I remember when I was going through that and now I'm in a better place. But having that memory helps me not to go back there again.
Do you have anything in your catalog that you have not yet quite figured out what you were saying to yourself?
One of the rituals that I have, yearly, I take probably a week and I listen to my entire catalog front to back chronologically. Once a year, I do this. And there's still stuff that, you know, like I find in songs that I thought I knew everything about, that I'm like, oh, that's why I said that. You know, like if there's like, it jogs my memory. It reminds me of situations. It reminds me of things that I may have forgotten. So I think I understand it all, but I know there's always little nuggets. Just the way that I write, there's always little nuggets. You know, some things are prophetic. You know, some things that didn't come to pass that I talked about 10 years ago. And it's like, oh, I'm living that now. You know, like I didn't understand it then, but I wrote it, you know. So yeah, it's always things that I'm discovering, but I think I understand everything, but I'm always making new stuff. So it's always a continuous puzzle to put together.
It's like a journal.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, it's very similar to going back and looking at a journal. And I imagine it makes you a better writer.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's stuff that I still cringe every time I hear it, you know, like every time I hear, but I understand, because I've been doing this since the first time I did it was after I released Celestial Clockwork. And then I listened to Unforeseen Shadows, Got Lyrics, and Celestial Clockwork, like that, in that order. And then like the next year when I released something new, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I kept doing it. And it definitely made me a better writer, and started to understand the things that I've been through and where I am now compared to where I started. And it shows growth. I understand the growth, even just as an artist, even taking the personal things out of it. Just as an artist, how I sound, the demand of language that I have, the cadence of rhymes that I have, the different styles, my rhythmic, growth, like all of that I pay attention to. And it helps me keep looking for new things to conquer. Like I've done that style already, but I haven't done this one. Let me try this, since I haven't done this after listening to my catalog. Oh, I know I haven't done anything like this, or I did something like that. Let me see if I can improve upon it, So it's definitely very beneficial.
Yeah, seems like an incredibly useful tool. What keeps you up at night?
My children, like just, the world is crazy, and, my oldest is about to be 20 years old, and I have a 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. So, with the way the world is, I just want to know that they're going to be okay, and that they're going to be prosperous, and that they're going to be productive members of society. But they're individuals, so they have to make their own choices. They have to go through life, and I'm doing my best to educate them and give them the tools that they need in order to succeed, or, at least be on a path to success. But I just don't know, and that's very difficult, especially now that they're older and they're really like making that transition into manhood. I have a 20-year-old son, and I'm not a granddad yet, so that's a check mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah, that's a very big check mark. But just with the way the world is, especially for young Black men, like I worry about their futures, and I worry about their abilities sometimes to navigate, the things that are out there, because, they have a very loving family, and a very, mother that a mother that tries to keep them safe from everything. And, having her realize that they're growing into men, and she can't always protect them, and has to trust and, believe that, the prayers that we've been praying since they've been coming up are going to help them and shelter them, and, hopefully give them guidance. So that's the biggest thing. That's the serious answer.
Right. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that keeps me up at night. But honestly, aside from that, just how can I be better tomorrow? I really look to improve and grow, and try to be a better person, a better artist, a better husband, a better father, than I was tomorrow. And that's the kind of stuff that I think about on a regular basis.
Did something significant happen in your life, though, that was something that you wanted, or like, was that something that you learned as when you were younger? Did someone give you that tool of like recognizing, like, I want to grow, I want to become a better husband, I want to be a better father, I want to be a better person? Because that is something that I'm a real big fan of, and I don't think everybody has that in them. And I'm curious to know, have you looked into where that possibly had come from?
There's a combination of things. Like, I saw it growing up, but I didn't understand it. I saw, the struggles that my grandmother went through, that my mother went through, my aunts and uncles went through to get to the places that they are today. And, coming up, I knew my grandmother had her own business. My grandfather had his own business. I had aunts and uncles that started their own companies that are self-employed to this day. And I didn't understand what that meant when I was young. But, now it's like, these are the things that I saw. These are the things that were surrounding me. And I saw, a lot of darkness as well. So understanding the difference between the light and the dark was something that I had to come to terms with, because even coming through high school and into college, I had serious bouts with depression. I had, serious issues with, dealing with life as a whole, because of being brought up and, kind of in the hood, and, you know, being teased as a kid and not understanding my worth and not, you know, realizing that I was a blessing for just existing and not understanding what that completely meant when I was young. And growing up and having children of my own and having a family of my own to take care of and a wife to take care of and children to take care of, and, you know, really starting to understand what my parents were trying to tell me when I was young, starting to understand what, you know, they were trying to lead me on so my life wouldn't be as hard as it was. You know, like those things have, you know, really in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I've really started to grab hold of that legacy and want to pass it on to my kids and want to be better for myself and for my wife and for everybody that comes in contact with me on a regular basis. So it's something I had to grow into, you know, and with that self-reflection, it's, you know, given me the drive to continue it.
When having kids, I've always told my friends who don't have kids is there is a lot that you'll gain from that. The thing, what you learn from that is quite significant. As long as you're, as long as you're willing to understand everything that you're given is part of growing and becoming someone better. There are a lot of people who do have children that just don't give a fuck about anything. Like they don't get anything out of it. But yeah, I guess maybe it's a human trait, or I mean, it's definitely something like you said, your environment where you are being able to see that happen. But yeah, I don't know, that stuff. I'm really intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by humans in general and how we interact with each other. And I would like for us to all be better in some way or another. So let me throw out a couple of Sophie's choices to you. The Last Dragon or Last of the Mohicans?
Last Dragon, easily. Easily.
Bruce Leroy was the best.
Sho'nuff was the best.
Yeah, that's right.
I would love a Sho'nuff origin story. Oh God, that would be probably the greatest movie. Oh God, it would be great. It would be so good.
Are you working in the film industry at all, or in some capacity, or not?
No, not officially. Like I'm working on some short films and stuff, doing stuff myself, but not officially. No.
Oh, I was gonna say get on that, because that would be. I never even thought of it, but that would be so fantastic. Because there's a reason why he's so pissed off.
Yeah, and what made me think of it is the Cruella movie. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but just the idea of it, like, because my wife said that her mother watched it and she was expecting, 100 Dalmatians movie. And I explained to my wife, like, it's not a movie about the Dalmatians. It's about Cruella. It's about the villain. It's just like the Joker movie had really nothing to do with Batman. It was about the Joker. So having a Sho'nuff origin story movie that's just about Sho'nuff and how he became, you better send that into
the Library of Congress, man, because someone's gonna jump on that. Look at me acting like someone of significance is listening to my. No, I think that's a brilliant idea. That would be great. So you say you're doing some short films and stuff?
Yeah, I'm working on a few things. Like I'm in the process of a friend of mine that is a producer. We're actually working on, a project that's going to be about 15-20 minutes, and it's going to be all original, basically like a 20-minute video, but it's going to be like a EP, but I'm going to release it as a short film first before it's available on any streaming platforms or anything like that. So
you mean, is it like The Wall, like a concept video, music video sort of thing?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Is it going to be a joint thing, so where you're writing the music for the movie?
Yeah, I
guess that's kind of like what The Wall was. It was a whole conceptual piece.
Yeah. Everything is going to be related. Like we're gonna, me and my friend who's a videographer, photographer, DJ, chef. He does all kind of things. His name is Product, and he's been sending me music to write. And then we both do videography and stuff. So we're going to conceptualize everything around the writing. So I'm going to do the music part first, and then we're going to storyboard the visual portion of it.
That is very exciting. I'm happy to hear that. Good for you.
It may take some time. We haven't started yet, but it's going to take some time.
But it's something that's there. Like, it's not just like a little idea you had. It's something that you're going to be actively working on.
Oh yeah, it's something that I wanted to do for a long time. Actually, I released for, we had the Bandcamp days that were going on. For one of the Bandcamp days, I released a project that I did about 10 years ago. And it was called the Cosmogramma Interpretations EP.
I was never discouraged, then I saw her face. There was a beauty only reserved for the faithful.
And Cosmogramma, if you guys don't know, was an album that Flying Lotus released probably in, I want to say 2002. Might have been a little later than that. But I discovered it very late and wanted to write some songs to some of the instrumentals on the album. So I did that. And it's really experimental. It's a lot of poetry, singing, just not a lot of rapping. And, I did that a long time ago and I wasn't going to release it. I just did it as an experiment and a practice and, just trying different things and styles and stuff. And I wanted to actually do the same thing with that project, but at the time I didn't have the money or the means to do it. So I just released the music. But doing this is something I've been wanting to do for a long, long time. And now I found somebody that's on the same page that can help me and it won't cost me as much money.
Yeah. I mean, that's unfortunate. It's always something that does have to be in the back of your mind. I don't imagine, I'm quite positive you're not the type that like you said, you don't make stuff for money, but it does cost money to do things. So you have to, that's got to be something that's in the thought process. Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to hear that because I really look forward. And I know you said it's going to take some time, so I get that. But yeah, that's really awesome to hear. On the same, I guess this is going to be in the same realm as The Last Dragon, but DeBarge or Delight, Delight.
DeBarge, because I know more of their songs. I remember DeBarge more.
Onyx or Monophonics?
Onyx. Easily Onyx, yeah.
So I'm on the leopard here. I was watching your music video when you did the paint on your face. What was
Conquer the Climb?
Don't ruffle any feathers to shuffle the deck. On a climb to find his mind, but hadn't lost it yet. Don't neglect the false prophets, opening eyes to lies so the ones denied can profit. It's all in your hands if you understand the longing to exist on a plane where you embody your gift. It's like this.
That's what I'm trying to go for there. Do you have was there a meal when you were growing up? Was there a meal that you hated?
Not really. Once I turned about 16, I stopped eating pork. And so anytime my mother would make pork chops or anything like that, I would kind of disappear. I couldn't stay away. Well, I stopped eating all the pork except pepperoni because I could not have pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza was, but every other kind of pork, like pork chops and ham and stuff, all of that made me sick because I had stopped eating for a long time, though, all of that. But nothing I really hated, no.
Aside from waking up, what has to happen in a day for you to call it like a good day?
Honestly, I feel like learning something. For example, we just got a new bed and it has like one of those adjustable bases. The plug like died on us. So I had to do some rewiring and figure out how to, get this bed to work because we paid a lot of money for it. And like just something like that was like, okay, I figured it out. It works now. Like I feel like I've accomplished something, So just learning something, whether it be, anything.
But it can be simple for you.
It could be very simple. And I feel somewhat accomplished because I have something new in my tool belt to use.
I take it you enjoy gathering knowledge and learning more. And I would imagine it's something that you really get an enjoyment out of.
Yeah, it's come with age though. When I was younger, I just wanted to, travel the least path of resistance as, just like any other kid. But again, growing older and you find pleasure in the little things because, life gets more difficult and sometimes more mundane and, harder. So you have to make sure that, little things can make you smile.
What is your ideal creating scenario?
I don't have really the ideal. I like good lighting. I like incense. I'm a sucker for incense.
It's funny you say that because I just listened to, we were on our drive back from Pittsburgh. We just listened to the last Super Duty Tough Work episode about the nine things, and one of them was like not having the correct studio time, where you guys were kind of clowning, not like getting the right incense right. So I wouldn't imagine that was you, but I guess that is you, huh?
No, I like it. I don't need it.
You don't need it, right?
I don't need it.
That was
there's that was the point. There's a difference. Like, I like it, and the fact that I can set that up, I prefer to do all that. But if I don't have that, I can still create. But that's the, and a place where I'm completely relaxed. I have colored lights and stuff in my studio, so I can dim the lights and blast the music and light the incense and have a drink, have a glass of wine. And
I did see in your post you were having a glass of wine. I like to see that. It's not nothing, again, not nothing. It's not something that you need, but why not? I mean, if it helps you get to a certain point.
Yeah. And I'm actually transitioning because I was a whiskey guy, and I still am a whiskey guy, but I slowed down my drinking in the last year or so. And I've kind of transformed, getting red wine. So that's what I've been on, and it's a lot easier because you drink so many shots of whiskey, you're drunk.
The whiskey gets to you quick.
Yeah, like you can't function. So I can drink half a bottle of wine and still function and not be drunk, and still be creative. So it's been a good transition, but my glass of wine is necessary, and a black and mild, at least one or two.
Do you like discovering new music, or I mean, are you discovering new music from new artists, or do you get a bigger kick out of discovering new music from older artists?
I always look for new artists, and not necessarily look, but I'm very open. And luckily we have tools like Spotify and Apple Music that make suggestions. So I watch Tiny Desk a lot. Find a lot of new artists on there, and just suggestions from my friends. Follow a lot of because I do different things as far as like video and stuff like that. I follow a lot of videographers and photographers and things like that. So even if they are shooting photos of an artist that I've never heard of, I'll go check out their music. If they're doing a video for someone, then I'll check out that video, and if I like it, then I'll find them on Spotify and start to kind of go through their catalogs and things like that. So I enjoy that, especially now that I'm producing. I hear music completely different. So I always am looking for different sounds and, how people utilize music differently, especially in different genres.
Is the producing, how new is your, the producing? Was that your last album that you did? Was that the first time you did the production on that, or?
Yes, that was the first time I did the production. But getting to that point was about a 6-7 year process. I started producing about 6-7 years ago, and worked my way up to, feeling comfortable enough with my own production to where I could put an album out. And now I'm full stream, full speed ahead. I don't think, it'll be rare to hear me over a lot of other people's beats going forward.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it probably going to just be you now?
Yeah, for the most part, because I can make the kind of music that I want to make.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to search for it. I can do, if I want to make a house album, I can do that. Like if I want to, make a reggae sounding instrumental record, I can do that. If I want to sing on a track, I can make the track and sing on the track. I can do whatever I want to do. So whatever sound I'm looking for, whatever, I can create that myself. So it's much easier, and it's less stressful, waiting for people to send you beats and waiting for them to mix down the record and waiting for, like,
imagine.
It's a lot, especially. And so now I can record a song and mix it and master it that night if I want to.
Do you have a particular pace? Do you work at a specific pace, or does that ever matter to you?
No, it doesn't. It varies. Sometimes, like I'm in the zone and I can write a whole song in an hour and record it and have it mixed and be, completely done in about 2 hours and have a song ready to be released if I wanted to. But there's other times it might take me a month to write a song. It might take me a month to write a verse. Like it varies, and I just kind of let the inspiration hit me when it hits me. But I also have the ability to just sit down and today I'm going to write. Today I'm going to make a beat. Today, even if it doesn't turn out good, like as a writer, I'm going to write no matter what, and I think that's how to keep the juices flowing.
Do you have a preferred release or I mean, how you release your music? Is there a preferred strategy to that, or?
Yeah, not necessarily. Honestly, every time I release something, I'm getting better at it. I've always, my previous albums, I was just the rapper. So I didn't handle any of that stuff. I got, I gave the okay, for things like, oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to try this. But now I completely control the campaign. I completely control the rollout. So, and honestly, the first time I really did that, and really took ownership of everything, where I had to buy the vinyl, I had to pay for the posters, I had to pay for the t-shirts, having to do all of that and not have a record label behind me, it's a completely different animal. So, every time I release something, it's going to be something new because I'm still learning it. I'm still diving in and, finding new ways to market and really understanding my voice a lot more and gaining new skills that I can utilize that I didn't have maybe a year or two ago. So that's the long answer, but not really.
Are you patient when you have new music that you've created, like a banger that you want to get out? Are you patient enough to sit on it until you have a collection, or like if you were going to release an album? Or
sometimes not. That's why I like Instagram stories, because if I make a banger, like I can put it on Instagram stories and it'll be gone in 24 hours. But whoever has gotten a chance to check it out has got a chance to check it out and know I got some fire, so having options like that help, because it's not a permanent thing, but I can still share it.
Yeah.
But I am pretty patient. I mean, there's certain songs that I've waited 5-10 years to release. There's certain beats that are some of the first beats that I ever made, but are good enough to where I could do something with them now, to where people may not hear them for 5-10 years after their creation. So I am patient in that sense, but especially now, if I record something really fresh, I got to share it. I got to let people hear that I'm still here and I'm still good.
Do you ever worry about feeling relevant or I don't know. Is that really ever a concern of yours?
Not really. It's important, but it's not necessarily a concern. Luckily, I mean, I've been blessed, to be in a position to where, I already have a following of people that listen to what I have to say and that care about what I have to say. So I know as long as I do my part, then I'm going to reach people. So I'm not worried about that. It's different for someone who hasn't had the career that I've had, and, who's doing that can be, sometimes that can be difficult if you're not motivated by the right things. But, knowing the fact that I can release something and I know at least people are going to hear it. There's a certain amount of people that care about what I have to say. So it's not something I really worry about at all. And I just love the art. So, as long as I can rap and make beats and take pictures, I'm fine, even if nobody pays attention.
Do you do some mentoring for younger rappers? Is that a position that you like to be in? Do you do it at all? Or
I mean, I haven't done it officially, but I have, a lot of my friends contact me about certain things that they know I have knowledge of. People hit me up on social media and ask me questions here and there. But, I think it's important for us veterans in certain positions, whether it's in music or whatever it is, to help the next generation and help people, continue to grow in that field if they so choose to, and if it's right for them.
Are you someone that feels like if you're helping somebody out and they make it better, it just expands you as an artist and expands you as a person too? It helps put the music out.
Definitely.
Are you enjoying doing that super duty tough work with
oh yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Honestly, that's part of, that's that self-reflection thing again. A lot of times, like, we'll talk about things and I still go back to old episodes to, like, am I doing this right? Is this how, like I should be, like it's a great tool that I even use. And Blueprinters say the same thing, that, sometimes we'll talk about things that we're deficient in, and how to get to a certain point. Cause me and Blueprint are really about that self-improving on a regular basis, no matter, how you do it. So yeah, it's definitely probably one of the best things that's happened to me in the last few years.
Do you approach that too with the same way you would approach your music? Like you go all in, you want it to everything to be right and sound right. And yeah, you guys are really good together. So when you guys are speaking artists, I really like that you guys use the term artist, because it happens a lot. Do you find that you're speaking mostly to other musicians or rappers, or just creators in as a whole?
Honestly, we're speaking to everybody, even if they're not creators. A lot of the things that we talk about can be applied to regular life as well. And, it just happens that we're artists, like, Print writes books, we do music, we do production, we do all kind of stuff. But, our biggest pot to draw from is as rappers and producers in the music industry. So that's what we use as examples. But the principles, can be used across anything. And that's really why we do things the way that we do them, because we want this not to just be a music podcast. We want this to be a self-help, self-improvement podcast with music kind of as the foundation of it.
Because that's what you guys know from. That's where you're the pull from. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And artists tend to be better observers than most. So I always felt like artists give the best advice because they're able to observe a little. I mean, that's what their job is to pay attention to particulars. And I don't know. It's a really inspiring. Do you call it podcast? Because I'm still struggling with the word podcast. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's a podcast. It's definitely a podcast.
Is it bizarre when everybody has a podcast? Is that...
No, I mean, it's, it's one of those things. It's just like, becoming a rapper. When everybody started to become rappers, it's about what you offer and if you add value and how comfortable you are with what you're doing. Because we started our podcast kind of late in the game. It was a lot of podcasts out there when we even started ours. So, but there's no podcast like ours.
Right.
There's nothing that has the perspective that we have and does, talks about the things that we talk about in the ways that we talk about with the experience and foundation that we have. So there's nothing like it. So the fact that there are a lot of podcasts, the fact that we can be individuals and we're kind of on our own island, helps, and that's the same way that we approach our music as well. There's no one that sounds like me. There's no one that sounds like Blueprint. There's no one that sounds like Slug. Like we have those things and we are able to be our own islands in a sea of a whole bunch of people that claim to do the same things that we do.
I guess what my feeling is, with music, to continue to make music, it costs money. So, well, these days, everything is so different.
It still costs money, no matter how you do it.
It costs
some money. Sometimes, I mean, depending on how you do it, it can cost more money, but you have to have some money, to do it.
Yeah, because that was the thing with like making movies or making music. You had to have money. So the people who weren't very good at it weren't making much money. So they kind of fell off. It was like a filtration system. But but these days there doesn't feel like there's much of a filtration when it comes to like anyone with social media and everything. There's a lot of voices out there that can get through that didn't cost anything. There was nothing at risk for them. So
it's much cheaper. It's much cheaper now. Back in the day, like you had to spend $1,000 on turntables and a mixer. You had to spend, a lot of money to get a good enough camera. Like a video camera back then was, thousands of dollars. Now we have them in our pockets. Like it was definitely different. So if you really wanted to get involved in some artistic stuff, there was an investment, up front. Before you even got to touch a turntable, somebody had to spend that $1,200 on those two turntables for you to even touch them. So, but now, you got your phone in your pocket, you can make a video. You got your phone in your pocket, you can record music, you can make music if you have your phone in your pocket. So,
and the quality is fantastic.
Yeah, for the cost of your phone bill, like you can become an artist. You know what I'm saying? If you're so a lot of people just do it and don't take it seriously as most artists do that have been doing it since the time that it wasn't so simple.
And even, I guess, for you to remain relevant and for it to matter, you do have to have something to say and be good at what you do. I guess you would.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Be there for a little while, but because
you have to adapt.
Yeah.
To, like the fact that I have all this in my pocket now, how am I going to utilize it, to extend what I started when it wasn't in my pocket, when I didn't have the money to buy a camera, but I had a friend that had a camera, so it's about that evolution as well, and understanding the changing of the guard, the changing of the times, and the changing of technology, and how to best utilize it to amplify your voice instead of, competing so much with all the voices that's out there. Like there's so much good and there's a lot of bad, but there's so much good. And if you're really looking for, good music, good content, good podcasts, people with things to say that actually mean something, they're out there. No matter how you find them, they're out there. And the fact that people have a lot more access and a lot more ability to broadcast to the world is, it's a gift and a curse. You know what I mean? It's great on one end, but it can be bad as well. But yeah, it's a lot of good voices out there that are being discovered just because of TikTok or Spotify even, or Facebook, or whatever social media they use.
Yeah, one of my biggest concerns that has been happening since the start of me doing these shows is I've been reminded of the beast of Spotify, or how do musicians finance the work? How do they keep, especially without touring? I guess touring will come back, but do you see a change or something down the line of how artists are going to be making money?
Well, touring is coming back. I mean, there's tours planned for this fall, so that's a plus. But for artists like me, like I don't tour really anymore. So what I've concentrated on is, starting my own kind of podcast, kind of web show that I do, but I do it, live usually, that I've started during the pandemic. Just offering different kinds of services, just being more proactive on social media, and trying to understand how to utilize social media, because there's people who are social media people that don't tour. They sit in their bedroom and make videos all the time and are millionaires, so tapping into some of that knowledge and how to utilize that is definitely, something that most artists and a lot of people in this generation kind of has it, kind of down packed. We're kind of trying to catch up to it.
It's very overwhelming to me. I know that it's going to be important going forward. The way people get to hear or see your work is a lot through these digital channels and social media and stuff.
Well, for me, and people that are, in my age range. So I was born in 1980. So I saw the transformation. I had a Walkman, but I also had an iPod. I had a cassette player, but I also had I've had all these things, and I've had the cell phone, and I had one of the early, a flip phone. I had, so I saw the progression of this technology and learned how to use it as it was being developed, so now it's not necessarily as hard for someone like me, but for someone like my mom, you know, it's a completely different world because she didn't grow up with it. You know, like technology started to develop a little further when she was working and taking care of kids. So she didn't really have the time to concentrate on it. You know, like, you know, I was 19 when, you know, things really started picking up with the internet and, you know, in the 2000s and, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, like being this in this generation, it's really helped to grow up with the developing of technology to where I'm not too far behind. You know, my kids still understand it way more than me, but I'm not, you know, too far off to learn, and it doesn't take me long to learn.
So it seems like you are an optimist.
Yeah, now I am.
Or were you pretty pessimistic before?
I used to be so pessimistic. Everything, it was a dark cloud all the time. No matter how sunny it was, there were dark clouds all the time. I'm way more optimistic these days about things because I see the silver lining usually. You know, even if things are dark, you know, I've been through so many dark times in my life and in my career and, you know, in every aspect that the fact that there was always a light at the end of the tunnel, I have faith that no matter what I'm going through now, it's not going to last all the time.
You've had enough good experiences to be able to draw from, to be able to know that, yeah, that's awesome. Madonna or Donna Summer?
Donna Summer, easily. Madonna was amazing. You know, like she was very influential and, you know, but Donna Summer just has those classics.
It certainly does. When are you at your happiest?
I don't know. There's a lot. I don't know if I have a happiest. There's a lot of things that make me happy. When I make a good song, when I make a good beat, when I write a good song, when I write a good line.
you usually recognize it immediately when you're writing, if you really.
Sometimes there's certain things that you say, or even how something flows or how I put something when I write, where it's like, oh, that was slick, you know. And there's other stuff I you know, might discover later, and depending on when I lay it down to the beat, it might turn out to be a little slicker than I had imagined it was when I wrote it. But there's some times where it's like, oh yeah, that's a good, you know, or listening to a whole song like, oh, that's it, that's a song right there, you know, that's a hit right there. So, you know, sometimes, but you know, others it takes some time.
All right, here's one for you. Jazz or Clippers?
I want to see the Jazz just because we've never seen it, and we've never seen the Clippers either. But Kawhi already has a ring, even though Paul George doesn't have a ring. I like Paul George as a player, but I just want to see the new blood, and that's what's exciting about this NBA season is that every team left in the finals hasn't won a championship for like 30 years.
I know, it's so great.
You know, so it's like awesome, you know, and I'm a Laker fan, so I was disappointed that my Lakers got, you know, eliminated, but I knew once AD went down, it was far-fetched anyway. And
it was such a rocky season for him anyway.
Right. And Steph is my favorite player. So, you know, once, you know, the Lakers got rid of Golden State and then the Lakers got eliminated, I'm like, I'm just here for the playoffs. You know, I love watching Kevin Durant play. I'm really like, I know Devin Booker had a 70-point game, I believe, or 60-point game in the Garden a couple years ago. But I'm just now really watching him, and then watching him with Chris Paul and all of that, like, is really exciting to watch. Trae Young has come alive, like just watching all of this new blood and this new generation. And this is what the new NBA kind of looks like, and seeing Embiid finally get to a place where he's good. And then Luka is an amazing basketball player, and him, and, you know, like I as you can tell, I watch a lot of basketball, but yeah, it's just exciting to to be a fan of basketball.
I have not missed a Jazz game in 25 years. I watched the replay. When the Jazz lose the playoffs, my season's over. I never continue on. I never have.
Yeah. I've always been a huge fan of just watching it, because, you know, coming up, I was always a Laker fan. So when Magic was there and Worthy and, you know, Kareem and all that, I was super young, but I love the I love Magic as a player. And then when Kobe came, you know, that was it. You know, like Kobe was my guy. You know, and of course I love watching Jordan.
I had to watch Jordan way too many times when only 2 times that the Jazz ever had a chance to get to the playoffs.
Yeah,
Jordan
was in
us.
the way. Jordan was in the way. Yeah. I feel like the NBA now is kind of more like it was back then because there's so many stars and it's spread out all over, even though there's those dominant ones. But you know, you had Charles Barkley, you had Akeem Olajuwon, you had Tim Duncan and David Robinson, and you had the Jazz and with Stockton and Malone. You had, you know, like there were so many players that were so good. And it's getting back to that where there's so many good players. So it's, you know, always they're still going to be their dominant ones, but there's enough to where the NBA is exciting to watch.
I agree. Yeah, they've put so much attention on. They keep saying that it's a different game, obviously, because the 3-pointer and bigs are not bigs anymore. But it has that feeling of the old day kind of NBA. Yeah, it's really exciting because it seemed very stale for a little while. So.
Yeah, I mean the Golden State and the Cavs went to the finals for 6 straight years.
Yeah,
like 6 years, the same 2 teams in the finals.
Fun about that.
Yeah, like I mean, it was. I mean, luckily I like Steph. You know what I'm saying? So like I was excited to watch it, but it did get kind of stale after a while. You know, it's like we've seen this movie, but you know, either the Cavs or the Golden State is going to win a championship this year.
Yeah,
you know, that's what's going to happen. So it's great to watch now.
You said something about pizza earlier. Oh, the pepperoni. Do you fold your pizza when you eat it?
Depends on how big the slice is.
You don't care. You're not a pizza purist.
No, not that much. If I was, I'd probably weigh a lot more than because I love pizza. I love it, but you know, I do my best to.
Oh well, and congratulations too on your significant weight loss. I saw that. That's awesome. Was that a conscious goal?
Actually, it was, but we also during the podcast, because me and Blueprint, like we do the podcast, which is about an hour, but when we're on Zoom, you know, preparing for it, and even afterwards, like we talk for like 3 or 4 hours. So there was a day that we were having a conversation, and he was we were talking about just weight loss and taking care of ourselves and healthy eating and all that stuff. And during the pandemic, you know, like studies show that a lot of people gained like, you know, 10 to 30 pounds during that year. And I was part of that group. You know, I gained a lot. I gained a lot of weight, about 30 pounds actually last year. And then we did the Health is Wealth challenge on Super Duty Tough Work. It's a 60-day challenge that's coming up in here. And basically the challenge was to replace a vice with something active. And you know, to really watch your calorie intake and, you know, try to, you know, start working out and do things to, you know, hopefully get yourself healthy, you know. But it was a 60-day challenge. And that was the biggest motivation, because one thing that this podcast has done is made me accountable for things. You know, like I can't be giving people all this advice about shit and not doing any of it myself.
Right.
You know, so I have to be an example. If I'm going to talk it, I have to walk it. So doing that, you know, it's like, okay, now I really have to start getting in shape, because people are expecting for us to have results at the end of this, you know. And if I have none, then it's like, you know, I'm bullshit. You know what I'm saying? I'm bullshitting out here. I'm not telling people the truth. So that was the biggest motivation for the weight loss. And
what is the total now about? Where you at?
I'm at about 17 pounds that I've lost.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Do you feel better? Like, you know what's crazy about that? How quickly the weight goes. Like one day you'll just look and be like, oh my God, I gained 15 pounds and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, and it takes forever to come off. Like you can gain weight, you know, like you can gain 10 pounds in a week, but you'll lose 1 pound in a week. You know, you'll be working out, you'll be eating healthy, and you'll lose 1.5 pounds. And, you know, I've done this, you know, for the last couple of months, and it's so frustrating. But let you have a bad week and you can gain 8 to 10 pounds easily.
Yeah. I've been
it's
dealing with it
crazy.
my whole life.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not easy. I mean, and just having the motivation to get up and go to the gym or get up and work out, even if you're working out from home, is difficult. It's hard, especially if you're working from home and you don't have to go anywhere. Like even when I was working, going into the office to work, I walked the steps all the time, walking from my car to the, even because I worked on the second floor, even walking from my car to my desk, I got a good couple hundred steps in, on that walk back and forth every day, so just that activity was gone, so it's hard to be active when you don't have to be, it's definitely a choice and takes some discipline.
There's a lot of sitting going on in recording a podcast too.
Yeah, recording a podcast, working, sitting down, making beats, recording music. I record music sitting down too because I don't record in a booth. So like I'm sitting down all the time.
You need to get one of those IKEA desks that go up and down.
Yeah. And see, I had one of those in the office as well. When I worked in the office, I had one of those. So I would work standing up for 3 or 4 hours a day, so I was active. And once that transition was made, yeah, that's where that 30 pounds got caked on. And then my wife can cook as well. And she's a baker. And she does.
Oh, she's a baker?
Yeah, she does sweets and, cupcakes and all kinds. She always experimenting with something sweet, so.
Bittersweet. Yeah, it's awesome to have, but also it's very hard to turn down.
Yes.
Well, so I pretty much got it here. I'm gonna end up putting a little bit more into that. So I want to just close up with a couple of things that I didn't want to miss out asking you about. Big part of this podcast for me is I want to share with my collectors and my followers. I want to share with them the music and the people who've inspired me. I'm not bullshitting you. Like your music is on all the time when I'm creating. I cannot create without music. My goal is to share with them these people. And my collectors are not usually people who listen to hip hop or the kind of music that I love. But I want them to give it a try. So my question to you is, what album of yours do you feel like is the album that people should get their feet wet with you, that would be the one that would put the interest in them to go like, oh, I want to try to hear some more?
I would say probably Capture the Sun, the album I did with Blockhead.
Flat on my face for the bridge burning pleasure, but the clouds on my footsteps with no fear. Went out on a limb after climbing a tree of life for good measure. There's never been a sunrise as tomorrow's. The morning of tonight is what we crave. I didn't see you standing there with your eyes closed.
Mainly because that album has the poetry of Celestial Clockwork with the production of Got Lyrics. It's a little more boom bap. It's a little more up tempo. It's not as heady as Celestial Clockwork is, but it's not as surface as some of my other records. So I think that would be a good I think that's a good introduction to me because I have different layers, a lot more layers on that record throughout the time of the record. And I think it's a good example of what you'll get from my catalog.
Continuing on. Yeah. Awesome. No, have you seen an uptick, or do you find people have any confusion with Logic now being out there?
Oh yeah. There was actually somebody, this was years ago when he first came out, but there's a YouTube video where a guy does a comparison of us two. And so yeah, I mean, even if you search Illogic, Logic will come up as well. So it's not a confusion, but people kind of when I say, oh, my name is Illogic, they're like, oh, you're not. No, I'm
right.
not.
No, I'm ill.
Yeah, right.
Anything else there, Adrian?
Sorry, your new EP.
Oh yeah.
It's called the Transition EP. And it's about done. I've actually been rolling around with what I think is the final version in my car for the last couple weeks. So I still need to get it mastered, but I'm trying to have that released before the end of the year. Everything is kind of contingent on, because I'm also releasing a reissue of Celestial Clockwork on vinyl. And that's definitely happening this year, but I'm hoping that that'll be in around August, but I'm waiting on getting my test pressings back from the plant right now. So
I would love to get that. When you don't know when that's happening.
I'm hoping around August, but I've already paid my deposit. It's already at the plant. I'm just waiting on the test pressing so I can okay it, because it's going to be multicolored vinyl. So one record is going to be gold, one is going to be green, and it also has a bonus song on the vinyl that wasn't on the original when it was released.
It was something you recorded at the same time. I mean, at the same time, or is it?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So that, honestly, my EP is contingent on that, because I'm going to utilize the money that I make from that to fund the EP. So ideally, I would like to drop, to do the reissue in August and have the EP out like November. That's ideal. But yeah, it's called the Transition EP, and each song is, kind of about transitioning and in different ways. And it's pretty personal, but it's more boom bap than Autopilot, which was my last record that I released last year. And it's a little more boom bap, a little more straightforward as far as the writing. And I'm excited about it. I'm super excited about it.
Where do you prefer people to get their updates and information about what you're doing or what's coming next? What's down the pipeline for you? Where do you prefer them?
All of my social media is Illogic 614. Other than Facebook. Facebook is Illogic Music. And I also have a website, IamIllogic.com. So all of those places, I usually update regularly.
And to purchase your music, what was your preferred place to purchase it? From your website, Bandcamp?
Bandcamp is where I do, where I sell all of the physicals and all of that stuff. And that, is the easiest way to support me financially as well. So, that would, but all of that should be listed on socials and, on my website.
Is merch going to come along with that Celestial Clockwork release? Or is that...
I'm trying to do a few t-shirts, and I'm actually repressing the original promotional poster that came out with the album when it came out in 2004. So I'll have that, and I'm thinking of some other cool little things to do, like maybe some slip mats with the the clock design. Yeah. It's like just some little things. I'm looking at some different merch options.
Yeah, low overhead but exciting to own.
Right.
I mentioned something about you do a live stream. Is that on Twitch?
I multi-stream, so I stream on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and also Periscope. And it's called Beats and B-Sides. And I'm just incorporating a new segment. Well, let me give you a little information about Beats and B-Sides. It's something that I started during the pandemic, partially to promote, to have another avenue to promote my record, since, I couldn't do shows or anything like that. But I also discovered about 3 or 4 hours of unreleased music that I was just cleaning up, and I found a bunch of tapes and CDs and stuff on different hard drives, and I was just going, and I found all of this unreleased music, and and I didn't want to, put it out as albums, because a lot of it was old, unfinished, unmixed, some of the people I don't associate with anymore. So I wanted an avenue to share that stuff. So I started doing the Beats and B-Sides show, playing unreleased music, playing, stuff, because I had a rap group in high school. We almost got signed and things like, so I had a lot of that music that I found, and just started sharing that stuff during that time. And then as the pandemic continued, I started doing theme shows with my albums when they would come on their anniversaries. So I would play like unreleased versions of songs. I would play different versions of songs that had different beats, because a lot of the Celestial Clockwork original songs weren't recorded to the beats that appear on the album. So I had a lot of those things, and just different things like that. So creating an experience for my fans, as well as, for myself to enjoy that music again. And I'm going to be evolving that into, I have a section of that show called the 5 Spot, where I do an interview with different artists, and I ask them 5 questions, and at the end of the interview they share an unreleased song of theirs. So I'm working, I've already done like 2 or 3 interviews for that, and I'm working on a few more.
Are people hesitant to and do you ever find people are hesitant to release unreleased or stuff that they were never planning on?
Honestly, it depends. It depends on how good it is, and it depends on, the level at which they're operating. Like somebody that's on a major label may have a lot of red tape to be able to do something like that. But an independent artist, they have music laying around all the time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something new. It could be something old that was never released, just something that was never released. I'm not asking for, like the single from your album that's not coming out for 2 years. You know what I mean? I'm not asking for that. I just want something that fans have never heard before.
Yeah.
So it, kind of adds a, something special to what I'm doing, just like you're doing with the, drawing during the interview, like doing something like that adds, something for people to look forward to and gives them something to check out.
On that movie thing that you were talking about that you might do, the conceptual that you're working on, is that something you would tour?
I would love to. I would love to. Like there's so many things that I want to do. I did a little acting when I was in high school. I did a couple plays and things like that. So that's something I've always wanted. Like I've always wanted to write a play. I've always wanted to do, little things like that. So it would be really dope if we could turn it into something like that. That would be ideal.
Some kind of, or you want like a performance, like a stage performance.
Like a performance, or even an art installation of some sort. Like I want to do things like that. And I think this would be the avenue to maybe experiment with some of those things, but I have to get it done first to see how visually to present it.
Crawl before we run.
But it's definitely like things that I've thought about and that's raced through my mind about what's possible.
That's really exciting. You are an inspiration. It was like really exciting for me to talk with you. I get a charge out of somebody so driven, and your catalog and the amount of work that you've created in your lifetime is proof of how driven you are, and your work ethic must just be amazing. I'm all about working hard. If you want something, you got to work for it. It was something I learned from my father, and it's something that I will carry on forever. And it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. I drew you a leopard here.
I like it.
I remember seeing that you were really excited about that microphone that you got. So I tried to put that in there. I know you don't actually hold those by a mic stand, but
no, it looks cool. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it really was a pleasure to have you on the show. And again, it's not lost on me. You taking a chance on me. Everyone that's been on the show, it's just been a huge honor for me. And I think it goes to show like how amazing you are as a person to give it a shot. So thank you for sitting with me. Thank
you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep smashing what you're smashing. I'm a forever fan. I will always be in your corner. Not that you need me there, but I will always be paying attention to what you're doing. So, okay. So again, thank you so much, Illogic, for joining me. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate this. This has been cool. Really good conversation.
Thank you.
And dope picture.
I walked into a life of tainted dreams and gumball machines. Nestled between the window seat and the drain of the mainstream, watching chaotic daylight stand stern on horizons.
Thanks again to Illogic for joining me. I find his approach to life very inspirational and thoughtful. Give his newest album, Autopilot, to your ears. You will not be disappointed. Also, stay tuned for his new EP, The Transition, and his short film hopefully will be coming out a bit later in the year. Go to iamlogic.com for more information and to support his work. And damn, I'm really looking forward to his limited vinyl release of Celestial Clockwork, and y'all should be too. It's a fantastic album. As always, you can find out more about my art and upcoming DOD45 episodes at ArtByTai.com. That's ArtByTai. And I'm not going to stop saying it because I never cared about it before, but now it's just getting ridiculous. Let's get that Twitter up to proportionate numbers as my Insta at FB. This is crazy. Doesn't seem right. It's like you're doing it on purpose. Go follow me at Twitter at ArtByTai. That's it for now. You'll find all the necessary links in the show notes. I'm out. Peace. Oh, no, I'm out. Cheers.
There are thoughts in my head that take place in my bed, and I don't have to lie.
Thanks for watching this episode of DOD45. I hope that you enjoyed yourself. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I don't want you to ever miss an episode. Also, stick around my YouTube page for a bit. There's a whole array of videos to enjoy, including time-lapse videos, drawing tutorials, and live streams. It's like an amusement park. Now click that subscribe button and go watch another episode of DOD45. Cheers.